Hey there, STEM enthusiasts! Welcome back to Kameron's Lab, Dive In, the go-to podcast for STEM students, crafted with passion by one of your own. I'm Kameron, your enthusiastic and ever-curious host. Buckle up for today's insightful episode. Ready to dive in? Perfect. So, good morning, Miss Esther. I'm really happy to be speaking to you today at the DLD 2024 conference. So yesterday I had the amazing opportunity of listening to your talk. If you wouldn't mind just kind of explaining a little bit about what you do, and that way people can get to know you a little bit better.
So in brief, I'm an educator. That's my number one role in life. And then I'm also an author, and I've written a book that's an international bestseller. And then I'm also a journalist. And so those are my three main roles. I do a few other things, but I'll just stick to those three.
Okay. If you wouldn't mind, so I really liked, especially yesterday when I first heard you speaking, the first thing you mentioned was your granddaughter and how her relationship with Alexa at the beginning. So she had thought that Alexa was an actual friend, and it took her a little minute to realize that Alexa wasn't quite real. Sorry, for those who don't know, the panel was called Don't Train AI, Train Our Children.
That's right.
So I really enjoyed that panel. So if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit more about, I suppose, that kind of impact of AI on our children, especially for education.
So AI can actually be a real help for parents and for teachers, and actually for kids as well. You can learn something that you might have always wanted to know, but didn't know that anybody would be patient enough to teach you. And AI will repeat it 20 times or more if you want, just to make sure you learn it. But this particular example that worked really well with my granddaughter, and it might work with all little kids, is she was always asking questions, like nonstop questions all the time. And then she discovered that we had something in the house called Alexa. It was, whenever she asked a question, Alexa answered the question. And so actually she used to pick up this speaker and carry it around with her. And turns out she thought Alexa was a real person. And she just thought Alexa was the greatest because Alexa talked to her all the time. Alexa answered all her questions. She was 3. And this went on for months. And she learned a lot. Really a lot, because she would quote, she said, Alexa said. and so, of course, Alexa was the authority. She thought Alexa was a real person. And, of course, we all thought that was pretty funny. But eventually she learned Alexa wasn't a real person, but that didn't really affect her. She didn't mind. She still talked a lot about Alexa and to Alexa. But if you just think about it, little kids, they do have a lot of questions. Most little kids are pretty curious. And it's okay for them to ask those questions to an electronic device. It never hurt anything. If anything, it made her more curious. And so I recommend that, to all parents. There's multiple devices out there. Alexa's not the only one. And you can pick your favorite one. And your kids will be happy.
That's so true.
So that's just one. But then in the elementary schools and in the middle schools, high schools, these bots that people have created, like for CK12, which is a education website, they created a bot called Flexi. And Flexi answers kids' questions. And as a teacher, I can tell you that makes my life easier. Because even if I had only 35 kids in my class, that's 35 questions. And this way, I don't have to answer all those questions. The bot answers the questions. And it helps me. It helps me with my education goals for my students because they get a lot of support from one of those electronic devices. So I personally think teachers need to see that as a way to help them be good teachers and not as a threat.
Yes, definitely. I really like, because I myself used to do a lot of camp assistant, and I was a teacher at my church, and also I do tutoring now. So a lot of the times when I'm working with children, the first thing they ask is a lot of different questions, and I feel like that's them testing us as teachers to see like how responsive we are to their questions. So once that trust, I suppose, is built, that's when they start feeling like they can ask you more questions and be more curious with you. So maybe it's that kind of relationship between like the children and the bots that we have now created for them, so they can have that kind of trust in being able to ask it questions and knowing that it'll give them responses whenever. Do you think that helps as well, the trust that they put in these bots?
Yes, I do think you pinpointed, it's exactly what I'm talking about. So, once a student gets to know a teacher, just as a human to a human, then that student will tend to ask even more questions because they feel comfortable. But with a bot, they can do it right away. It doesn't take any time. And they need to know also that you can't ever be wrong. You can ask as many questions as you want, how often you want to ask them, and the bot's never going to get mad or get tired.
That's the great part. We definitely will.
Because human beings, unfortunately, they do have a limit.
Exactly.
And they tend to get tired.
Love that. I guess the sense of comfort. And I really like the idea of being able to, for teachers especially, to bring them into the classroom. But I've also listened yesterday into the panel that there is this barrier of teachers not wanting to use the bots. Maybe they feel, I guess, replaced by the bot in some way. But how, I guess, do you as a teacher feel comfortable bringing the bot into your classroom?
I think a lot of teachers feel threatened. They think that the bot's going to take their role. And I guess I have never felt threatened. In fact, I've always been relieved that there's another way for my students to get the information that they want. And I mean, one thing the bot can't do is have human feelings. And teachers can have those feelings, so you can never be replaced. And teachers need to realize that all the AI, it's not a threat, it's a support. And I mean, my classes were really big, and it was on purpose because I just had so many applicants and I didn't want to turn them away. So sometimes I would have classes as many as 70 kids in one class. And the only way that I was able to do that was because I encouraged peer-to-peer learning. So kids were in groups and they could always ask each other questions, and then they could search for the information online. But now it's even easier because now they have these bots to ask questions. And I think that I would like to help teachers understand how effective it can make them in the classroom.
Sorry, everyone. I just realized that I had my tripod. I thought it was dead, but it's okay. We're good. So I'm here again with Miss Esther, and we're going to just continue our conversation from the audio file. So just to go back into our collaborative kind of speech about teachers. So we already mentioned how that kind of threatened, I guess, feeling for teachers when they're working with these bots. But you already mentioned how you're able to overcome it by seeing it as more of a teacher's assistant rather than anything. So if I could talk a little bit more about where I'm coming from. So as I already told you, I'm from Bermuda, and we have our public and private systems. So I think one of the things that we really need to work on improving in our educational system is getting students the help that they need early, because I feel like there's, especially for students, there's that feeling of, if I ask questions, it makes it look like I don't know what I'm doing. And if I ask my teacher too many questions, they'll think I'm not paying attention. So how would I guess you say that those bots would they give students more confidence that they can ask these questions? Like how would you say that they improve that feeling for students?
It definitely gives students more confidence. But also what it does is students feel somehow liberated, that it's okay to ask any question that they don't understand, even if it sounds like it's not very smart. And the reason a lot of people are afraid to ask questions is they're afraid of looking stupid. And, you can be as stupid as you want for a bot, because the bot doesn't care. And then you can ask all the questions you've ever wanted to ask, and you can ask them repeatedly. And it works out really well. It works particularly well, in the elementary school, middle school, high school, actually even college. Even for me, all levels, because there's areas that, I want to learn more about that I might not have studied. And I can learn now, and I don't have to worry about anything. And I think teachers should see the AI as a support, a way to help them achieve the goals that they have for their students. And and not as a threat.
Yes, exactly.
Because a bot's never going to take your place.
True.
It's just always going to be a support for you.
Mm.
Some people think that, all you need is the bot. But, the problem with the bot is it has no human emotion.
Mm.
It doesn't like you.
It's true.
And it doesn't hate you either, and it doesn't have any feelings at all.
Love that. I really like the idea of you just reminding teachers that they won't be replaced by this technology. It's more of an assistant for them. So I suppose if you could talk a little bit more about the teacher's role in using this more of an assistant kind of thing. So for teachers, for me at least, I remember all of my teachers were very empathetic to me. I had questions like excuse me, miss, I slept in early. Like if you slept in early and you tell the AI, it's like, cool, what's your question? So it's just going to keep going. But I just that kind of role that teachers have to continue to be empathetic to their students and continue to build that relationship with them that a bot could never really build. Because as soon as you delete the chat history, you have to start all over with that relationship building.
So one of the things that's important for all teachers to do is to build relationships with the students. And many teachers don't have the time. And it's because there's too many students in the class, or they're too busy, or they're tired. And so the bot takes a lot of work away from you. So it can help you so you can spend more time on relationships with students. And one of the things that my students have always said about me, and actually to me, is that I always cared about them. Mm. And, it wasn't something that was fake. It was like, I really did care about them. Mm. Yeah. And it comes through. And if you have time to care about students, that's going to make them want to work harder, want to learn more, want to be in your class. So teachers should realize that, bots can be their friends. They're friends for the students, but also friends for the teacher.
Love that. And when I first met you downstairs, you were talking about how you really wanted to make changes in the educational system. So just improve and bring upon, I guess, that next movement, because we've been, like you said, kind of stuck in the dark ages for quite a long time and nothing's really been changing. So I guess what would you say would be, I guess, your top things that you would want to be able to change in? Does the AI kind of help with that way at all? Or what else do you think we could be doing in terms of changes in the classroom? Of course, that's super broad for you.
It's a broad question, but it's actually a good question also. The main change is really to make students feel like they matter. And if you go to a typical university, I don't know, in London or US or, all over Europe, the classes are really huge. And I went to school at UC Berkeley, and the classes, today they still have 500 kids in them. And when I went, there were 500 kids in them. And so things haven't changed very much, at least in terms of numbers.
So true.
But in my era, if you had a question, that was kind of like asking the Pope a question. You could never get near the professor. So it was just there were just too many people. It was too far away. You were afraid to ask your question for fear you didn't want to look stupid and maybe get a bad grade. But I'm sorry to say things haven't really changed a lot. And there's these large classes all over the university systems worldwide. And the same thing in middle school and high school. And so that's why I think, for me as a teacher, it's like a gift. It was a way for my students to get a lot of the information that they need without me putting forth the energy that I needed to put forth in order to answer all those questions. And I wish that when I was going to school that they had bots, to be honest. Just going back a little bit, 20 years, 30 years, whatever, I remember the advent of computers in the classroom. And teachers were very threatened by computers. As a matter of fact, it took years for teachers to learn to use computers in the classroom. I think you're probably all too young to know this, but it took a really long time. Because one of the things I did was teach teachers how to use computers. It was really hard. And the main reason it was really hard is teachers somehow, they get into their mind that it's not okay to ask stupid questions for them. They're afraid to ask questions. So they would just get stuck. And then they wouldn't ask questions. And then they couldn't move forward because they didn't ask questions because they were afraid to look stupid.
So true.
So, I mean, that is one of the biggest problems, that's the biggest impediment, whether you're doing math or physics or whatever, English literature, whatever you're studying, you need to ask questions. It shows you're interested. And there is no such thing, as far as I'm concerned, as a stupid question. But a lot of teachers don't have that attitude, as you all know.
Very true.
So that's why, I'm really glad that we have the bots.
I think when you're a teacher, I wouldn't know. But it feels, well, at least from my tutoring perspective, there's this sense of responsibility when students are coming to you with questions. If you don't quite know the answer, then it can be difficult for you to say, I don't know, as a teacher, because then they look at you like, you're the teacher, you're supposed to know. So I think there's definitely that kind of inner fear that you don't want to let them down, and you don't want to be the one to say, I don't know what that is either. It's like, we can look it up. But I think if we change the narrative to maybe, I'm not sure, let's look together, that would be really exciting as well. That would
be great if you could just say that. I'm not sure, why don't we look together? Or why don't we ask the bot together? Or why don't we research it together? But that was actually my methodology is, I basically posed questions in the class. And then the students had to get the answers as groups. Yeah. And it was interesting to see that some groups came up with totally different answers than other groups. And then we would all compare answers. It made class really interesting as opposed to a place where you're just memorizing things you don't understand.
That's true.
And most schools today in the world, kids are memorizing facts and they don't know, A, why they're memorizing them, and B, they don't understand them.
So true.
That's, we're teaching for the wrong century. The way that we're teaching was popular at the beginning of the 20th century.
Wow. And it still
like
hasn't
100
changed.
years ago.
It still hasn't
Oh
changed.
my God, what are we going to change? How about now?
That would be great if we could just start changing now.
Yeah.
I guess because I think seeing big changes in the education system is probably going to take an unfortunate while because there's so many different other barriers, regulations, different teachers' feelings. Unfortunately, feelings seem to get in the way quite a bit.
Yes.
I guess what would you say would be a nice smaller change where we could just start somewhere? Because at least in Bermuda we really haven't seen that much change in our educational system either in quite a long time. So what would you say would be some small changes we might be able to make?
So that's a great question because many people have tried to change the whole system.
Yeah.
And every single attempt to change the whole system has failed.
Of course.
Everywhere. So my suggestion is just change 20% of the system, just a little bit. So one day a week, do it differently. One day a week, have the bots answer the question. One day a week, have all the students work together in teams, or let the students even teach the class. Just one day a week. So 4 days a week, you can do it the way you've been doing it. And just that one day you can change, and you will see for yourself. You can try it. What does it work? And what works? Or maybe there's some things on that one day a week that you maybe want to bring into the regular day. So that's the way I suggest. And most school districts around the world are very comfortable with doing it one day a week. They're not willing to do it 100%. None of them. They're afraid.
Again, the feelings. Feelings are in the way. What can we say?
So it's like, fine. It's perfect. Just one day a week is enough. Yeah. And then experiment yourself. See what works. See what doesn't work. Because maybe it works better for you in Bermuda or, in London or in Washington, D.C. Maybe it's different dependent on the country or the culture. But I'm telling you, putting kids in charge always works. And the reason it does is, I use this analogy. If you want to learn to be a really good swimmer, you don't just study other people swimming. You watch them, okay, that's fine. But if you want to be a really good swimmer, you have to swim yourself.
So true.
And if you want students to learn to be innovative and be leaders and be creative, they can't just watch other people do it. They have to do it themselves.
So true.
And so on that one day a week when they do it, they can practice leadership skills. They can practice collaboration skills. They can practice all these different things that you want them to practice, but they don't have an opportunity in a regular program to do it. It works.
Yeah,
I mean, that Palo Alto High School where I started this program, it started with about 20 kids in 1984. Today, it's the largest media program in the world.
Oh, right.
And it's the city of Palo Alto, I'm happy to say, built a beautiful building for the program, 25,000 square foot building on the Palo Alto High School campus. And the program is run by the students. They practice leadership skills, thinking skills, creativity skills. They practice by doing it. And that's what's really important. And they don't do that in other schools. So, I mean, as I say, just do it one day a week and see how it likes.
Get started.
See how they like it.
Yeah.
I think the kids will really like it. Also, just imagine for teachers, it's like 20% of the time you don't have to work that hard.
You can relax a little bit.
You can relax a little bit. Kids' Day, they're in charge.
I really love that swimming analogy of just, you can't learn how to swim without actually getting yourself in there. I think one of the traditions that we have back in Bermuda, it sounds a little bit crazy, but the whole thing is that my mom remembers learning to swim by my grandfather just like showing her, like, that's the water. She's like, okay, next thing you know, she's in the water.
Just throw them in.
Yeah. I think there's that as well. There's that sense of giving them that independence. It's more like you don't always have to throw them in the deep end, of course, but it's more like give them a chance to have that independence and to have that time to say, okay, I'm stuck, but if I figure it out myself, then I'll be able to either learn, and also they can teach their peers as well, which is also something I think is really fascinating when students teach other students. But obviously we're going to listen to each other more than we're going to listen to the teachers. So if we can get that going as well, I think that'd be great.
Peer influence is really important and it's huge. And so kids can influence each other more effectively than adults can do. So as a matter of fact, during the teenage years, one of the things that adults get upset about is they don't seem to have the same influence on their children. And the question is, so who's influencing them? All their friends.
Yeah. Love that as well. Okay.
So yeah, just see whether you can empower your students, empower your kids to, feel confident, and do some of the things that they're really interested in doing, as opposed to the things that you want them to do.
That was great. I really enjoyed that, actually. I wanted to go a little bit back into the university student, just because that's who most of my audience is for today. But if we could talk more about how, as university students, we can start, I guess, using these tools that you mentioned. So I know Flexi is for like ages, I think it's from grade 4 to 12 you mentioned,
yes.
But is there anything different that you would say we university students can try to implement as well? Because like you said, there's this it's a huge campus. You try to go to your lecture and they're like, who are you? So at least with this kind of tool, what would you recommend that we can try for if we have questions?
Well, so there are a lot of just AI tools out there. They're just, they're everywhere, even for making movies or creating poetry or doing math or whatever. There's so many that I can't name that. The only one that I use regularly because it's on my phone is Bard. And I swear Bard's very good at answering all my repetitive questions.
That's what they're for.
Yeah. So I would say that students today, let's say you want to write an essay and you don't know how to write that particular type of essay, you can give a prompt to one of these ChatGPT-like devices and have them write a model essay for you. So as a teacher, of journalism or of English, I was always teaching how to write essays. Yeah. I actually had to write the essay as a model for my students. Otherwise, how do they know what to do? This way, I don't have to do that. I just like, Chat GPT, will you please write the essay as a model and just show students what it looks like, what I want. Now you can do it, so it takes a lot of burden from me, the teacher, but it also enables a student at midnight, for example, when most students, of course, remember, oh yeah, that essay is due tomorrow.
You're bringing it to the light, not all of us.
And so it gives you an opportunity to get help at any time, day or night. And it can That doesn't mean you don't want to copy it, because you don't want to shortchange yourself.
Yes, exactly.
You don't want to eliminate your opportunity to learn, but you do need a model, because otherwise, how do you know what you're supposed to do?
Very true. Yeah. Well, thank you. I think just, I suppose, to finish out today's wonderful talk, thank you so much again for joining me. But I wanted to finish it off with the sense of confidence that I've been getting from our conversation. It's just using these tools and these assistants really gives students that confidence that they can ask questions and that they can figure out the answer. And if it's something that's really small, that they're like, nobody's going to want to answer that, the bot doesn't mind, then it can totally answer.
That's right. It's my goal in general. I guess if I had a one-liner, my goal is to empower students to believe in themselves. And because, you're smarter than you think you are. And the reason you question yourself is because the whole system makes you question yourself. You go to school, it's like, oh no, I don't know anything. But honestly, you have instincts that you need to respect. And the bot or ChatGPT or whatever can help you feel better about yourself. You want to feel good about yourself. And that's my goal. That was my goal for my students in my classes. And that's my goal for doing what I'm doing worldwide, trying to help students everywhere.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And thank you again for joining me. I really enjoyed our conversation. I hope everybody else enjoyed it, because I personally had a great time. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. I'm very happy that, to meet you.
Thank you. Hi again, awesome listener. That wraps up another deep dive of Kameron's Lab Dive In. Before you dive back into your day, see what I did there? Take a second to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Want a behind the scenes look? Bonus content? Or just some good old STEM fun? Follow me on my socials, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Kameron's Lab. And remember, every episode is a new adventure, and we've got some thrilling dives lined up for you. Don't miss out. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.